Hey everybody, this is Jeff Newton again, and with my next installment, which probably can only at this point be described as angst TV. I'm a former producer at 60 Minutes, former senior producer at National Geographic Television, and a former senior producer at Vice on HBO, their long format series. I worked there in 2016. Anyways, I've spent 30 years covering wars around the world. That's predominantly what I've done. And now I'm living the simple life up in the mountains of Highland County, Virginia, which is like 4 hours outside of DC, literally up in the mountains. We live in a hollow. And, we've got a separate business here that's unrelated to journalism. And today I'm coming to talk to you not about the 60 Minutes piece, because we don't know where that's going at this point. We do know that 60 Minutes is on tomorrow night. I'm not sure. I haven't seen any of the teases to see if that piece is going to be fixed or aired. I doubt it this early. Barry Weiss is doing her best to make sure that that piece never sees the light of day. And I imagine there's other pieces, frankly, that she's going to work on that'll probably never see the light of day. She's trying to, as the editor-in-chief of CBS News. You can rest assured that the producers and correspondents and people who run the show at 60 Minutes are pushing back as hard as they can. I know that because I used to work there, and they can't stand people meddling in their shit. But today I wanted to talk about some other stuff real quick. Really, it's about how the Trump administration treats female reporters. Not just the Trump administration, but Trump specifically himself. We have so many incidents in the last month where he's just picking on female reporters for asking him simple questions. The first thing I'll say about that is he picks on them for a reason. Two reasons, mainly. The first reason is because he's a pig. He does not have any respect for women, He sees them as sexual objects. He always has. We know that's why. He's all in the Epstein files, probably to the tune of about 1,500 examples. We know that he spent $850,000 of taxpayer money to pull FBI agents off their normal jobs up in New York to redact the Epstein files. They spent weeks and weeks doing it, just try to get his name out of there. We know this. That's the number, $850,000. I think that, it's pretty important to understand that he treats them that way because it seems to be how he's brought up, I guess. And, just goes to show being rich doesn't mean you have any class. But he does it. He's referred to female reporter as piggy. He routinely calls female reporters ugly, stupid. He's done it more than one occasion in the last month. ABC reporters, CBS reporters, Bloomberg News reporters, New York Times female reporters, even when they were working on a staff story with another male to them, he always referred to the female. That's his thing. So, that's just his modus operandi. And he does it because, he's the guy who paid six figures to Stormy Daniels, allegedly not so he could steal the election, but because, I don't know, maybe she was a friend or something. I'm not really quite sure why I paid him. He doesn't even probably remember at this point, right? But that's what he does. And the second reason he does it is because he's trying to discredit the questions they're asking. They're asking good questions, hard questions. And when you ask hard questions, his normal operational response is to call something fake news and then to insult the reporter. And it's always a female reporter that he leaves the best insults for. Can you imagine calling a reporter piggy? And, my question to him would be, is this how you believe it's okay to talk to women? Is that what you teach your daughters, or would you be okay with that if he spoke to your wife or daughters that way, right? Somebody spoke to your wife or daughters that way, called them piggy, called them ugly, called them stupid. But that's what he's doing on a daily basis, right? Caitlin Collins, wants to pull her credentials, because she's asking tough questions. CNN's Caitlin Collins. I have some advice for these press corps people, when he does that, first of all, even the sycophants in the room, because we know there's a ton of Trump sycophantic reporters that are there. They've basically put tons of conservative media in those newsroom White House press briefings because they want softball questions. But when they say things about female reporters and Trump says something, have some respect and ask follow-up questions like, Mr. President, why do you always say something's fake news when somebody asks you a question? Mr. President, can you please just answer the question this person asked? Mr. President, why do you feel it necessary to insult females all the time when they're asking you questions? So just have those in your back pocket so you're not scared to ask them, and don't be afraid. Nobody's going to be upset with you because you asked tough questions, or, push back. Have some respect for the profession and for your fellow colleagues. I think the world is waiting for you all to start pushing back on him in an appropriate way when he gives disrespect to everybody else. I mean, and you don't have to be a dick about it. You can just say, Mr. President, why do you say fake news every time some female asks you a question? Why, Mr. President, do you say somebody's ugly when they're asking you a question? Why, Mr. President, do you think that it's okay to speak to females this way? Is this how a U.S. statesman, the leader of the free world, should be talking to women? Do you think it sets a good example to the world, Mr. President, that you speak to reporters and journalists this way when all they're doing is their job by asking you tough questions? Mr. President, are you not up to the task of answering hard questions in a way that is not derogatory to the people asking them? I mean, you are the President of the United States. You're supposed to be able to sort of juggle that stuff and be able to answer them. Why does it seem so hard for you? Are you okay, Mr. President? When he says stuff like that, somebody should just say, are you okay? So, White House press corps, good luck. You have a hard job. Don't be scared of being kicked out of the press corps there. He's doing it to everybody anyways. Pete Hegseth's doing the same thing over at the Pentagon. If you don't agree to tell stories the way they want to, all the media over there had to turn in their press credentials so they wouldn't agree to these stupid ground rules. Don't be scared to get thrown out. The best stories don't happen in press conferences. If you want to cover the White House, the best stories aren't in the White House press briefings. We all agree that 60 Minutes is one of the best storytelling news organizations that broadcast journalism has ever had. Would you agree that PBS Frontline does some of the best stories about the world that we live in each and every week? Let me tell you where they're not. They're not in White House press briefings because the stories seldom get broken there. You're standing in front of people like Carolyn Levitt who lie for a living, who, when asked about the Miss Piggy comment, she said, well, the president's just being frank and honest. I mean, it's okay for him to call somebody a piggy, right? Almost like Miss Piggy, which seems kind of ironic coming from little blonde Caroline Levitt standing up there. Sorry about that, Caroline. That was low blow, but I mean, come on, really. And so I think that you guys should not be scared to be thrown out of the press corps. You'll find better stories elsewhere, and you'll find better stories when you're digging and not spending all day waiting for a single press conference to happen, or you're not sitting there on Air Force One waiting for some old man who probably has dementia coming out of the back to argue and call you names. You can cover the White House without being in the White House, and you're tearing it down anyways, most of it. So you're limited where you can even travel. So don't be scared to be thrown out. Your colleagues will respect you if you push back when somebody demeans you like that. There's this great clip by this New York Times reporter who was talking to the founder of Vice one time, and they were talking about how they weren't just going over in Africa and covering same old kind of thing. And this reporter said, hey, wait a minute, who do you think you are? We've been covering this world for decades. You've been around for all of a couple years. You have a lot of nerve. And he said it right in the interview. It's a really famous clip, and I think it makes a lot of sense. When somebody insults you or is not giving you respect, the respect you have to give back to them is equal. That's why people like President Obama and those folks were respected, because despite the fact that they had to field tough questions too, they did it with a degree of grace. And you can say the same thing about George Bush. When you asked him questions, he may not have had the best answers, but he did it with a degree of grace. Same as his father. So it's not a partisan thing. It's a humanity thing. It's an empathy thing. It's a respect thing. It's what gentlemen do when they're in that position and they're asked tough questions. They deal with them. If you can't do it, you shouldn't be in that sort of kitchen. You know what I mean? Thanks, everybody. And hope you guys are having a good Christmas. I missed a day or so. I'm going to do more of these things now because I just have to get this anger out. It's angst. Angst TV, I think we're going to call it. So I appreciate you guys following us and being a part of this. Talk to you soon.